Folks, it's taken 21 days. 21 days of evidence and witnesses and internet memes and meme comments and crazy conspiracy theories, but we have finally reached the conclusion of the evidence in this case. All that's left to do is tomorrow we're going to have some closing arguments. We're going to have some jury instructions, and they're going to get started deliberating. And I suspect, what's today, Wednesday? I suspect we might have a verdict by Friday afternoon.
That's what I was listening to the guy lawyer, Peter. That's what he said.
Oh, is that what he said? Yeah. Well, if they get handed the case tomorrow afternoon, they're definitely not going to finish tomorrow afternoon.
No.
But I think this is the kind of case where you either have your mind up already, where you probably already have your mind made up, and you probably decided like a week ago, and all of these extra witnesses have just reinforced whatever side you've chosen to enlist. And so I don't think it's going to be a mistrial. I think at this point it's probably verdict.
Well, when they put manslaughter on the table, I figured that would kind of do, a little bit sway from like a hung jury.
Yeah, I mean, the one result
that
the jury would not be able to stomach, I think, would be like a full-on acquittal, like she did nothing wrong. That's not what they're going after.
No.
And that's not even on the table, for one.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Yeah. The prosecution, they brought two psychiatrists and a psychologist. And Dr. Saathoff, to me, Dr. Saathoff, however you pronounce it, I call him Dr. Greg. Dr. Greg from the FBI, he, to me, was clearly the superior psychiatrist as far as the witnesses goes. I don't think they should have had Dr. Mack. Do you think that was a mistake?
No. Yes.
Why do you think they did that? To me, that seemed like a colossally boneheaded move. Dr. Mack was just smug. I didn't find that he was very convincing.
Yeah. There's really only one reason to have had multiple experts, and that's if they all agreed, but they didn't. And they disagreed, which was the point. Him and the guy that was right after him, I already forgot his name. I liked him, but then he got kind of dismantled towards the end of his testimony. And then we have Saathoff. The other guy, he was practicing since 1978, but he didn't know like a really common definition that you told me that any doctor worth salt would just know.
Akathisia.
I mean, I didn't know that. I'll take your word for it. But Dr. Saathoff, he's been around. He's been working with the FBI for 30 years now. He was certainly very credible. And he came off as the most trustworthy of the experts. The problem that the Commonwealth has is that all of their experts disagree. And the treating physicians that I don't think you could have really gotten around it, the actual people that treated Lindsay, I don't know how you do this case without speaking to the actual people that looked at and treated her. Maybe that was part of the problem, because there was 4 of them and neither one of them could agree on what was wrong with Lindsay. And then you had 3 additional expert witnesses come in on rebuttal, and none of them could really agree as to what was wrong with Lindsay. Everybody has a different idea, a different diagnosis. And I think the statistic is 1 in 1,000 of postpartum cases turn into postpartum psychosis. Am I getting that statistic right?
I think it's 2. I think it's 2 in 1,000.
All right, 2 in 1,000. So that means for every 1,000, there's 2. And I realize it's a really low percentage, but it's also a really low percentage of mothers that end up doing what Lindsay ultimately did. It's not a zero proposition is the point.
Yeah.
And all they really had to do was find a credible way to definitively eliminate postpartum psychosis as a possible diagnosis.
Right.
And I thought that Reddington has done a masterful job of painting a canvas where postpartum psychosis would fit.
Yeah.
Which is, I can see a world, I can certainly see where she was in psychosis. I get it. And throughout this entire trial, he's thrown in non-lawyer arguments, non-doctor arguments. Like, so you're going to tell me she's been like this perfect mom, loving mom, and wonderful wife, and doing all of these wonderful things for all of her life, and then all of a sudden she's often murders her children? Give me a break. That kind of stuff. Something like any layperson would say.
I thought Dr. Saathoff did a really good job of explaining why he thought she was not being truthful as far as hallucinations. I think he laid that out in a way that a layperson can understand really well. I did notice that they were attacking the collateral information that he got a lot more than some of the other witnesses, and that kind of with the jury, I think it kind of makes you have to look at how reliable the basis of like the information that he has is. And so then you have to call into question his conclusions. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think a lot of people were confused by that. Why is Red all of a sudden saying, well, Patrick said this. Did you hear anything on that call? Or how do you know this? Or what about the pills? You didn't see anything to crush it. So like they're challenging the whole basis that he formed his opinion on versus like with some of the other guys, some of their opinions were I think kind of stupid.
It is frustrating that the 911 call was not hearable to the general public because apparently there's conclusions that have been made from that tape.
Given the descriptions that I've heard of it and read of it, I think I agree with that call. I think that is a horrible, traumatic thing, and I just judging based on the way that people are treating the people involved in this trial, the mother, the sister, the husband, Patrick, and like making fun of them, putting up, clips of them on the stand and mocking them and saying the most heinous things imaginable. I definitely agree with keeping that from the public because I don't think that anyone should have to, every time they turn on the phone, hear their 911 call like that, or hear their son's 911 call, or their, son-in-law's 911 call when he found their dead grandchildren. So I think that was the right call.
I have no problem with that decision. It's frustrating me not personally hearing it because we've heard different accounts. Like Patrick said that Lindsay said definitive things based on his interaction. There was one person, at least you and I were discussing yesterday, that said that it sounded like she said basement and through her moans and guttural.
I saw two reporters said they could make out the word basement. However, others have said they couldn't make out anything. So it's really just word of mouth and whose account you want to trust at that point. And I have no idea what to think at this point. So
yeah, and I'd have to just imagine that Patrick, having not heard that through a 911 recording where the phone receiver was not pressed up to Lindsay's mouth, I assume, would have been the more reliable account. And he was pretty definitive. And the Commonwealth has never tried to make him a suspect in the case. And the defense has never attacked Patrick as a possible alternate suspect in the case, in spite of his very impassioned defense of Lindsay Clancy on insanity grounds. And so I just have to believe that there's a reason for that. But, again, I'll never get the opportunity to steal evidence for that.
What I would say to people who are now questioning that more than ever is this was the very end, the last expert. They have to throw everything out there that they can. And also, we're giving a lot of grace to the idea that somebody who's mentally ill, like Lindsay, could not have a perfect memory or perfect recollection of events. But we're not thinking about the other people who experienced that trauma. They might not have a perfect recollection either. So I would just say don't automatically assume it's nefarious. Could it mean something? It's not impossible, but don't automatically assume it's nefarious because this affected that entire family in a way they will never forget. They'll never be the same. And I think that it's perfectly reasonable to think that they don't recall everything perfectly. So
what I can tell you is eyewitness testimony is some of the least reliable. And it's the reason why when you have stuff on tape, it's like, oh, well, I guess that's how I just saw it so much differently in my head. Like you and I could see the exact same thing. We'll see different things.
Yeah,
we will. We've all had that moment where we're recalling something that happened at a family event. You remembered it a certain way for years. It turns out nobody else remembered it the same way as you. You really didn't throw a football over those mountains. It's just, that is a thing that you created in your mind. I'm not saying Patrick created anything. I'm just saying that he probably filled in gaps. It was a traumatic event.
For sure.
If he didn't have a perfect recollection of, verbatim speech of what Lindsay Clancy said, it's forgivable. And he's never made a suspect. It's been 3.5 years. He would have been a very easy target if there was something there, but there wasn't.
You gotta remember also, Red had private investigators on this, and they've had 3.5 years with it. If there was any chance that he did it, they would have gone for that. There's no way, because looking at the way he defends Lindsay, and he's a very good defense attorney, even when I think he's being a little grouchy. He's very good. He's very good. And so there is no way that he wouldn't have brought that up. And he's not going to drop Easter eggs. This isn't a Taylor Swift album, right? He's going to say it loudly, and he's going to say it to the jury, and he's going to say it directly in a way that they know you need to consider that my client didn't do this. So that's not a thing that I really feel like I'm going to give too much intellectual energy to. As far as this theory that Patrick did it, I don't believe that at all. I understand other people feel strongly in the other direction about that, but just agree to disagree, I guess.
Did not mean to go down that rabbit hole, but the fact that we're talking about the 911 call, I just felt that it was going to come up.
I know what you mean.
Tomorrow in the
it definitely was, because today was like if you're watching this as a spectator, it can be more confusing than ever, I think.
Yeah. So the other thing is, very early on, I believe that Reddington, like in the first week of trial, right after Patrick had testified, he came out and said something in support of Patrick. Right after he testified, which tells me all I need to know about what he thinks about Patrick's involvement was and what happened to the children.
And in one of these podcasts that I love listening to, Defense Diaries, they talked to Reddington. Bob is there. He's been watching the trial, and he said that he does not support these kind of conspiracies into Patrick. And I was also say, like, Deborah, I see your comments, and I got to tell you, Patrick's uncle was never the police chief. That person is not related to Patrick Clancy. Unfortunately, people on TikTok repeat things, and they sound truthful, but they're not.
Patrick's uncle was the police chief at this time. His name is Matthew Clancy.
That guy's not related to him at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if he is or he isn't. If people, I'll let people make their own conclusions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you need to, look into that, you can. I'm not going to spend any more time on it.
Yeah. Let's get into Saathoff's testimony. I'll tell you what. I feel like my mind is made up. I'm ready to hear closing arguments. It didn't matter too much what Saathoff was coming in to say. I got Resnick and I got Saathoff. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. I am of the opinion that I cannot reasonably rule out or disregard the possibility of psychosis. And that is giving me pause into criminal culpability. If I was sitting on a jury, I would probably be stuck on that singular issue. And there is very unlikely that anything Saathoff was going to say was going to change my mind with respect to that, given the large disagreements with respect to the experts in this case. However, he did come off very credible. He did come off very trustworthy. He was by far the best expert that the Commonwealth had. And I listened to him a lot more than I did anybody else from the Commonwealth. And this was a case where the witness was a lot more important than the person doing the direct exam. The Commonwealth's presentation be damned. He was a credible witness. And so just going into his credentials, he has been working for the FBI since about 1996, the senior psychiatrist for the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit since 96. That's 30 years. He's treated thousands of psychosis patients over 15 years. I'm going through this so we don't have to replay it. Due to more important stuff. Over 15 years running an inpatient admissions unit, 5 to 7 women he's personally treated who killed their children were treated by him in a maximum security prison. The 1987 bromocriptine article or whatever that was. The first was linking that to a lactation drug to postpartum psychosis. He studied that. He's not board certified in forensic psychiatry. He never had a fellowship. He's testified approximately, he said, like 40 to 45 times. And he was paid for his involvement in this case. He conducted 2 Zoom interviews with Lindsay. And of course, you already know that that's going to be attacked. He never met her in person. And he met her approximately 3 years after the incident. We get it. That's a running narrative with Reddington. And so fair play to that. Let's get on to some of his testimony, starting with yesterday.
Oh, I was just thinking, like, when I was listening to this guy on direct, I was like, the defense attorney is going to get so fucking frustrated with this guy because, like, he talks slow. He's smart and he gives, thoughtful answers, but he talks slow. He answers questions slow. And he takes a pause before he answers. I was like, this is going to drive this guy nuts. Because it was starting to drive me nuts a little bit. I was like, I really like this guy. I think he's smart. I want to hear what he has to say, but he's driving me kind of crazy with his
I couldn't listen to him in the background. I kept on having to check to see if the thing like cut off or something because he would sit there and pause. But he was just really considering his answers. By the way, I forgot I'm fast forwarding through some of this stuff. I'm going to start this at 6:23. Okay. Where it starts getting into the Spinelli
It's not stuff on the screen yet. You know that, right?
I didn't know that. but I know it now.
I'm going to go throw my laundry in the dryer. I will be right back while you're pulling that up.
All right. Everybody pardon Lauren while she finishes shaving. Here we go.
Report Ms. Clancy's characterization of the command auditory hallucinations.
Yes. So Ms. Clancy stated to me and some other evaluators that her hallucination, that of an external voice, something coming from outside of her head, occurred when she was standing at the refrigerator. She said that she was in the process of making her children their dinner when she received a call from Patrick Clancy, returned the call, and then as soon as she finished the call with Patrick Clancy, she said that is when she heard the voice. This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids and then kill yourself. And so that was what she told a number of us. There are also other accounts that she made to individuals that were quite a bit different. To Dr. Spinelli, for example, she said that the voice happened at 5:10 or 5:15 p.m. as soon as Patrick Clancy left on his errands, and that the voice, she described the voice to Dr. Spinelli as increasing in intensity, but saying, "This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids before you kill yourself." But also that it was that her children would suffer if she did not do that. When I asked her about the voice that she heard, again, she said that it started really right after the telephone call at 5:34 with her husband, Patrick. And she said it was a man's voice. It was very clear. It was...
That's already a contradiction in what the experts have said as far as the narrative with the voice. Most people have said that the voice started as soon as Patrick left. He's now saying that it started after the phone call.
Yeah.
Which would have been, I believe, when she was already in the act. Or at least that's what we've assumed, given how the narrative has gone. So this is already different than what we've heard.
I'm honestly a little shaky on the timeline because remember when we looked at that civil suit as well, the timeline is totally different. She says a totally different thing there than what some of these people are saying here. And it's kind of jumbling up in my mind.
I have not yet looked at the civil lawsuit in depth.
You jumped into my stream, I remember, when I was looking at that, and then we went on later that night. But you didn't read it. But I remember us looking at it. But the thing is, she about the voices, she says totally different things about the voices in that lawsuit.
I do remember that. I watched you read it, is what I did. I didn't read it myself. So
I'm sorry for that.
I watched you read it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and asked him a question, then had to go.
Yeah. So Calm21 Hater in my chat here points out in the civil complaint it says she heard voices to harm the kids in the afternoon. It's all over the place. So she says they started way earlier in that lawsuit, and so what she has told these experts who are evaluating her is different than what she recounts to her attorney in the civil suit. So it's interesting.
Yeah, let's let him finish. He's going to go on about this voice for another 10 minutes or so. I'm going to fast forward at some point to get to the good stuff.
External, in other words, came from outside of her head. That was constant. So this phrase, "This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids and then kill yourself," was something that was repeated over and over and over and over again during that period that she strangled her children. And then just as soon as it started, it stopped at when she had finished killing the children, strangling the children.
Doctor, was there anything about what she reported to you about the voice that was significant to you in your evaluation, and if so, why?
Is that you or is that me? Or is that that has to be you? You're I hear you pounding on the keyboard or something.
Yeah, let me mute myself on time.
Oh.
Well, what was significant to me is that she had not spoken about hearing voices before that in any of the mental health professionals, the psychiatrists, the nurse practitioners, the physicians and staff in the emergency departments or at McLean. And so this was the first time that she reported that was documented, but also that she experienced an auditory hallucination, according to what she told me. So that was unusual. And then also what was very unusual was the fact that the voice stopped with the death of, or the strangling of her youngest son, Callan, and that she went upstairs and then proceeded to engage in behavior in an effort to kill herself, but that the voice had stopped as soon as she had strangled her last Callan, her youngest child.
If I could stop you there for a moment.
I got to tell you, Lauren, that's bothered me from the very beginning of this case. Is that voice, it started and it stopped. All within.
Oh, bro, I thought you meant my keyboard. I was like, well, you could have said something.
Oh, well, I didn't know if it was you or it was the video. I didn't know for sure.
Well, I think Dr. Greg taking these long ass pauses didn't help. But go ahead. What were you saying?
No. Oh, I was just saying it's what he just said has bothered me from the inception of this case. The fact that the voice only started during the time that Patrick had left and stopped as soon as her last children had passed.
Right. And what I'm so stuck on is this. What I read previously before I even heard any of this testimony was her saying she heard these voices earlier in the day. And so the jury is not going to be considering that, right? But I can't get it out of my head where I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. And so like this whole starting and stopping at these times, it's like, I wouldn't call it convenient because nothing about any of this is convenient, right? But it fits the narrative in a snug way that I'm like, I'm not quite sure that's exactly what happened.
Well, you're right, because we've heard inklings that actually these intrusive thoughts, which may have actually been voices that she just wasn't telling anybody about, might have been occurring as early as late November or early December. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine if there's going to be a major emphasis of jury deliberation, it's going to be on that specific timeline and what those intrusive thoughts entailed. There's probably going to be a lot of readbacks of expert testimony because it was confusing to listen to. It's like, wait a minute, so she heard voices in December? No, those weren't voices, those were intrusive thoughts. There's gonna be a lot of that stuff. And here's this doctor once again repeating it. What was unusual to me is that the voices started when Patrick left or when she got the phone call and stopped immediately after the death of the third child. That's insanely confusing and frustrating if I'm sitting there on a jury. So I'd imagine they're gonna have questions because I have questions. Let me continue.
And ask you, you said that it's unusual that this was the first time that she had heard this voice. Why is that unusual?
Well, she had certainly suffered with symptoms of mental illness, depression and anxiety, most specifically. Anxiety that she had reported to Dr. Tufts in mid-September, and then certainly the symptoms that later on included suicidal ideation and also what she said were dark or intrusive thoughts to harm her children that she mentioned to her husband and her mother on, I think, 2 occasions.
And Doctor, you also mentioned that it was unusual that the voice stopped after Callan was killed. Why is that unusual?
Well, I'm compared to other patients that I've treated who have had command auditory hallucinations.
I want to object to that. You want the same objection before? Kelsey, I see you.
You might want to skip over the sidebar, Omar. unless he walked away from his computer, in which case I'm just going to start singing. Oh,
I'm
there you
muting
are.
myself. Yep. I just said I'm about to skip over this sidebar, and then you were telling me to.
Well, I was going to try to scare your audience away, but that's fine.
Hear a voice that's constant rather than intermittent.
No, that is not typical.
And what does it mean, the difference between a constant voice and an intermittent voice?
Well, an intermittent voice would come and go. It wouldn't necessarily just keep playing over and over again as if it were on a tape, which Ms. Clancy told me that it was a voice. It's the same thing in the same tone, repeated over and over and over until she had strangled Callan.
And is it typical, based on your training and experience, for someone to hear command hallucinations and then for them to stop abruptly?
No. Committing the act is not curative of the voice. I've not ever seen that.
And doctor, based on your training experience, someone in psychosis hearing a voice without accompanying delusions, is that typical?
That would be pretty rare. It's absolutely not typical.
And in talking to Ms. Clancy, did you speak to her about the concerns she had that if she had voiced thoughts of harming her children to providers, medical providers, that her children would have been taken away?
Yes.
And did you see that as a delusional thought?
No. Certainly with the requirements that healthcare professionals have to report any issues that could cause harm to children, for example, as required reporters, it's very rational for her to be concerned that by voicing her thoughts of harm could cause her children, certainly an assessment and a rapid assessment and a determination about how best to keep the children safe. So I didn't see that as irrational, but rather rational, just understanding the healthcare system.
And when reviewing the records and speaking to Ms. Clancy, did you see or notice any delusional statements or beliefs surrounding the hearing of that voice on the 24th?
No, I didn't.
Okay. How does that point grab you when we've heard other experts in this case specifically state that you could be delusional and you could be psychotic or have a psychotic episode and be completely appearing, give the appearance of rationality and be able to plan and to not disclose things for fear of having your children taken away or, plan for dinner or plan for school or whatever it was that she did?
It is possible that you could have psychotic symptoms and appear functional. However, if you're at the point where you're hearing a voice telling you to kill your kids and you're acting on it, you're not going to appear functional, in my opinion. So that's where I kind of get to the point where I'm like, I have some doubt about this version of events of the defenses, because I think if she were, say, like in the civil suit, she describes hearing voices earlier in the day. Say she was hearing voices like inside her head, and they were like, I don't know if you remember this, like last week we talked about ego dystonic versus ego syntonic. Sometimes the hallucinations, they are harder to differentiate because they are in line with your sense of self, your morals, your values, and things that you would do. But sometimes they're very conflicting with the things that you would do. So say Lindsay has been described as a great mother. I feel like this is very conflicting with that picture of her character. I feel like if she were experiencing this kind of hallucination, she would be very distressed. And I know that in this version of events, she hasn't been hearing them until after Patrick is gone and after she talked to him on the phone. However, I have a very hard time thinking that she would appear totally functional before this happened if it was as severe as she's describing. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. If I just word salad it, it's fine.
It does. I guess the only other question I have for that is, would the delusions be more apt to come on when she was alone versus, say, when Patrick was there?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Would they be more apt to come on? I think that in a lot of circumstances, though, if somebody's present, you're less likely to act on them, and you're more likely to, possibly more likely, not all the time, right? Because some people are really severe, but sometimes you're more likely to deter, yourself from acting on what you're hearing, because and I think it was this doctor who used the example, or the last one, I can't remember. If a police officer is around and you're hearing voices telling you to commit a crime, not to do it because there's a police officer there. So that kind of thing, right? It's not totally out of the realm of possibility that wouldn't matter at all. However, a lot of times it does.
Like, for example, like what if like there was a demon telling her that, hey, Patrick is the devil and you can't let him in on this plan, and so you got to keep this an absolute secret. So you can only do this, but obviously there's nothing like that in the testament. I'm just trying to come up with a hypothetical where that would make sense.
Well, in that case, if she's hearing that, I would say when Patrick is around, it is possible that she appeared functional and was listening to and believing this hallucination she was having, to the point where she thought she should send him away and then she could do what she needed to do. It's possible. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible.
Or she knew that the plan was less likely to work if she started while Patrick was in the house, and so therefore. Right. However, the hallucination didn't start until he was gone, though. So that's where I come back to, like, that's one version of events, right? But the other version of events is it started way earlier in the day. So it's been difficult for me to rationalize that, making it fit. And so, like I said, man,
I think the fact that we are sitting here having such a hard time with it is why she's going to be found not guilty.
Maybe, or why she might be found guilty, for all I know.
I really think that they're going to find her not guilty by reason of insanity, just because of the burden of proof in Massachusetts on the prosecution. If it were the other way around, I would feel the opposite. So
I'll tell you what, if she's found not guilty, it's going to be because nobody trusts the experts in this case to agree on anything. Mm-hmm. And they're going to rely on the most credible of all of the experts, and that was by far and away Resnick, although this guy did a really good job. If they believe that she was criminally culpable, it's going to be because they don't believe the audible hallucination narrative. It makes absolutely no sense to them based on all of the evidence they've heard, and they've heard it over and over and over again. People saying that, they're hearing it from this guy saying it's very, very unusual. And that's the thing he keeps saying, is it's unusual, but it's not inconceivable.
Right.
The question is it reasonable? And I don't know if it's going to be enough to get them over the hump. But if they find him guilty, it's going to be, or her guilty, it's going to be because of that. Mm-hmm. Because of of the troubling nature of the timing of the hallucination. Yep. I'm going to skip ahead to 711.
Go ahead. Yep.
He's going to talk about something about the crushed pills, and I want to get your opinion on this as it relates to her delusion. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. With the crushed pills, I get the impression that these people think that crushing pills takes like superhuman strength or a special tool or something. Yeah. And for a long time, I know this is ridiculous, but I was like afraid of taking pills. Like I hated it. So I would crush them up and I would put them in like fucking pudding like a child. You know what I mean? So like you can do that with like a spoon. You don't need a special tool for that. However, I guess they're seeding doubt in the minds of the jury when they say, I didn't see any pill crusher around, but like you can crush a pill with like a cup if you smash the cup on the pill. You know what I mean? Like if you try it hard enough.
Yeah, anybody that has and anybody that has children would know that. For children that can't swallow pills. I mean, rancid. Most kids take like the liquid, I
got to put my Zoloft in applesauce, Doc.
Well, I can't help it here, Lauren.
That's never happened. That's never happened.
If I ever give you vitamins, I will crush up your pills. Well. All right, let's continue. Here's what he has to say about that.
Yeah. In terms of taking the pills, what did Ms. Clancy tell you about how she took the pills?
I'm sorry?
What did Ms. Clancy tell you about how she took the pills?
It wasn't really very clear. I was
requesting what she said. It's the question.
Do you recall what she said?
I'm sorry.
Do you recall?
By the way, you got 10 joules from Maggie CG.
Thank you, Maggie. I think there was another one that popped up too. Angela.
There was. Angela Youngman.
Yeah, thank you for the 10. This guy, IMO, was the strongest witness for the pros, in my opinion, reasonable doubt to sanity at the time. I've seen many patients in psychosis. I've seen those meds cause hallucinations and delusional thoughts. Yeah. I agree that he was I thought he was the best. It might be a little bit of recency bias, but I totally would listen to this guy lecture, to be honest. So like, of all the witnesses I've seen, if I had to like pick someone to learn from, I would choose Dr. Greg here.
Well, this one was not recency bias. He was by far and away the best. I also look at Dr. Shaw because she had no dog in the fight and she came off incredibly competent for what she was there for. There was the one that actually treated, the one that was like a month out of residency that treated Lindsay.
Tufts?
And she's, Tufts, and she's fighting like a civil case and fighting for her career, honestly. So Dr. Mack was kind of a
Dr. Mack was kind of a dick. He's not incompetent, obviously, but like I don't think he was appropriate for this case.
No, but Saathoff did really well. I don't think that's recency bias. I think
I just know that personally I have a recency bias in that I kind of forget, some details of like the past people. And so I might think like this guy is the best, you know what I mean? But if I looked at them in sequence back to back without days in between, I might feel differently. So like, I don't know, but I think he's the best. So
fair enough.
Call what she said about taking the pills, whether she took handfuls or did something else.
Oh, she did not say that she took handfuls. She did not describe the overdose in any specific terms.
Did she tell you anything about crushing up pills?
Objection, leading question. It's already been answered. Next question.
Did she give you any other information about taking the pills?
No.
Now, if you could tell us that portion that I asked you about earlier, what is sequential decision making and how did you see that in her behavior?
Well, as I mentioned, she, after strangling the 3 children with the exercise bands, she went up the steps, went to the kitchen. She got a knife and then ascended yet another group of steps to her bedroom, to their bedroom.
So if you could pause that for a second,
and
Omar, that knife that she brought to the bedroom could easily have been used to crush those pills. I think, and I kind of agree with some of the investigation being lackluster at the least, because they didn't test these things. But that knife, bringing that knife into the bedroom, that's a very easy explanation for why the pills were crushed.
Yeah, you take like a regular chef's knife. You could, the same way you would crush garlic. It just quick pop. Done.
If you really wanted to, you could cut it with a butter knife.
Somebody was mentioning that it was crushed with a fine powder. I mean, I don't know what the consistency of the pills were, but nobody's disputing that there was crushed pills, and nobody has given like a rational reason. And part of that is because of the investigation was just lackluster. Mm-hmm. It left a lot to be desired, and because of that, we had a lot of issues today with post-trial motions that we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Described the attempt or cutting her wrists as well as her neck, and also described the overdose in barely. It was just hard for me to get a good idea about how specifically the overdose occurred, what she did, but she omitted some things that I thought were significant.
And what things did she omit that you think were significant?
Well, she omitted the fact that she had actually crushed the pills. And I found that to be, quite significant.
And how did you
found that to be the fact that she had actually crushed the pills? And I found that to be, quite significant.
And how did you learn that she had crushed the pills?
I learned after interviewing her husband, Patrick, and he went through that evening and talked about coming to the home and the like, and mentioned that on the bedside table, there was a wine tumbler with powdered medication, crushed up medication, that there was still some in the wine tumbler. And I had not heard, she had not told me that she had actually crushed medication. And I know that in Dr. Resnick's report, and also in what Lindsay Clancy told me, that she had lemonade in that wine tumbler when she took the overdose. And when I asked Patrick Clancy, he told me that they didn't think they had any lemonade in the house, that was not typical at all.
And doctor, what is the significance?
Finish, please.
I'm sorry, were you not finished?
You done with it? Hold on. You
Yes.
done with that answer? All right. Next question.
And so, doctor, what is the significance to you, if anything, of this atypical use of lemonade and the crushed powder in the cup?
You say what is atypical?
I think you just said that Patrick Clancy said it wasn't typical to have lemonade, correct?
Correct.
So is there any significance to you to the fact that there was lemonade in the cup and that there was powder residue in the cup? Or straight that, was there any significance to the fact that Lindsay Clancy told you that there was lemonade in the cup and that Patrick Clancy saw powdered residue in the cup?
Yes, it made sense that lemonade would be in the cup if you're trying to take an overdose of medication that you've crushed, just because of the bitterness that these pills have. So that made sense. I asked her more about the lemonade, and she told me that it had been in the wine tumbler from the night before.
And in terms of,
Quite honestly, I don't know what to do with that. You know, so was it another failed attempt at, or another idea she had about how to commit suicide?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit, man?
Well, here's the thing with this. So, like, a lot of people think this doesn't make sense, right? Like, why would you do this? Or Patrick had the pills in the car. We know that not all of her pills were in Patrick's car, just the ones that they wanted to turn back into the pharmacy because she got new prescriptions. So she did have pills. Whether or not those were the things that were, the residue that was on the lemonade, I don't know. As far as not having lemonade, which I've heard, I don't know about that either. I do know that if we are to believe that she was in a psychotic state the way that she alleges she was, nothing is going to make sense at that point. So from killing the kids to falling out the window, none of that's going to make perfect sense. So it seems like she tried to cut herself, which I've tried to tell people. They say she's a nurse, she knows how to cut herself. So like cutting yourself is hard. Your bodily instincts kick in. You don't want to hurt yourself. Even if you think you do, your body does not want to cut itself, right? With the pills, with the crushed up pills, allegedly crushed up pills, because they didn't test this shit. I don't know what the thought was there. If you were going to drink that and then go out the window, I don't think that it makes a whole lot of logical sense to do all of those things. However, if she's truly psychotic and hearing a voice telling her that she needs to, kill her children and then kill herself, I think that we're not supposed to make sense of it, because that doesn't make sense and it's not going to make sense. So.
Fair enough. It's just there's so many little details in this case, and I think that getting caught up on the crushed pills and the difference between it being lemonade and being inside of a wine tumbler. All that tells me is that Lindsay has an imperfect memory. Probably so does Patrick. Clearly, there's some inconsistencies with both of their statements, but not so much that we can't agree on the facts. Like I once tried a case where 3 children were all testifying to the same thing. All of them were testifying to the same thing. Every single one of them gave a completely different version of the same thing, but the structure of the day was the same. And that's where the jury found credibility with their inconsistencies. And so those are minor inconsistencies. The story is still substantially the same with that. Crushed up pills, lemonade, she tried to overdose, she tried to slit her wrist or cut her throat, jump out of a window. Nobody's disputing the fact that she attempted to take her own life. Yeah. And so what are we doing? The question is whether or not she was delusional, whether or not she was in a psychotic episode when all of this occurred. That's what the case rests on. And so with that, I'm going to fast forward to day 2, and he's going to give more thoughts about that.
What was I about to say? I don't remember. Oh, this like varying version of events between Patrick, between Lindsay, and the fact that their accounts in their civil lawsuits, because Lindsay and Patrick filed separate civil lawsuits. So Patrick's civil lawsuit has a different account than what's being told here. Lindsay's civil lawsuit has a different account of what's being told here. And this is all just a jumbled mess between what she told to which experts, because she talked to multiple experts and apparently told them different things. So that's not necessarily nefarious, like I said, and I think you were just kind of alluding to that. It's like a lot of people, when they go through traumatic events, especially like this is probably the worst thing that I could think of for somebody to go through. Like, you're not going to have a perfect recollection. So I don't think that anybody is necessarily lying. I think that there are some variations in how it's being remembered, especially because Lindsay talked to the defense experts long before she talked to the prosecutor's experts. So, you know, he didn't interview her until 2 months ago, this guy. So
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot that can change in your brain and the way that you store your memories, but like, there's a lot that you can change in like what you think you recall between, you know, 3 months after this happens and 3 years after this happens. So,
There's that. And then there's the fact that how much communication did she and Patrick actually have after the event?
basically
To
none.
like go over
Next
the
to none,
timeline.
yeah.
Yeah. So of course their versions are going to diverge
Right.
at the fulcrum, which is
Yeah.
exactly what happened. Is what I would expect. And so they're getting the timelines mostly right, but they're differing in the details.
I think
what's
it's interesting that they didn't question the family more about what she said about that night in the time since it happened, because the family, they asked the family questions about what happened leading up to the night when she killed the kids, right? But her family, they're the ones who've been visiting her in the hospital. They're the ones who have been seeing her and talking to her, and they can attest to what changed and what she said at what time. And I feel like we didn't really delve into that for some reason.
Well, probably because of hearsay issues and because it was coming in anyway, the
Okay.
most relevant portions of it from the experts, the actual people that treated her.
So I think that in some circumstances, the experts are the best people to hear from. I think in this circumstance, I would say the family would give a much better account of her day-to-day recollection of things and how things have changed over time, what she said over time, than an expert would. An
And I
expert who
think
interviewed her for a couple days, you know what I mean?
it was probably not going well with the family members anyway. I think the prosecution probably expected a different showing than what they got. And they were getting really frustrated to the point that it led up to the mortal sin question, where they were just getting, okay,
Yo.
stop saying she's
That was terrible.
Do you know what she
Yeah.
did? You know, it was just like
Yeah.
this. It was the worst part of their case, honestly. It was extremely forgettable. Here's day two. I've fast forwarded to day two where he starts talking about the voices again. He's going to talk about the voice never commanding her where or how or what to use or the order of operations, and the no instructions thing, and the fact that she had control of the sequence throughout. And then he's going to talk, well, I'm actually going to skip where it talks about the lacerations. I think we've talked about all of that. From there, I'm going to jump into his opinion where he gives it again, and then we'll get into some of the cross.
Okay.
No.
The fact that the voice, according to the defendant, the voice didn't tell her any of those things, but instead just said, kill the kids so you can kill yourself. Is that significant in your evaluation in any way?
Yes.
How so?
Well, in the small amount of time that Ms. Clancy had in the home without her husband, it was important in order to carry this out, as well as her suicide, to do this quickly, methodically, and the like. And so this is having no instructions as to how to do it, but being able to execute those decisions, including being able to get a phone call and then return it to her husband in the process of all of this. Certainly the phone call was not expected. That is surprising that she was able to accomplish all of this without any other kind of direction or plan.
Does that indicate to you that she was making decisions about those things, about where and how and when?
Your Honor, this is, again, for the record, direct examination. It's leading by objection. It has a standing objection.
Yeah, if you could just rephrase that.
What does the fact that
So
she was
what's
able to
going
do
on
all of
there?
that
He
indicate
says-
to you, if anything?
What was he objecting to?
Oh, that she's she's basically asking leading questions.
Well, it indicated
I'll hear it
that
again.
The fact that she was able to do
I got to hear the
about
question
those
again.
things about where and how and when
Your Honor, this is, again,
you that
without any other kind of direction or plan.
does that indicate to you that she was making decisions about those things about where and how and when?
Yeah, that's the leading question. What the correct question is, what does that indicate to you? She's saying, does that indicate to you about what she did and this and that and whatever? That's a leading or
Okay.
like a reminder of where he's supposed to go. That's the objection.
this is, again, for the record, direct examination. It's leading by objection. It has a standing objection.
Yeah, if you could just rephrase that.
What does the fact that she was able to do all of that indicate to you, if anything?
Well, it indicated that she had control of the sequence of what she was doing throughout.
Doctor, you talk in your report about interpersonal psychological theory of suicide. What is that?
Well, that has to do with the decision-making process or the capability for someone who attempts suicide.
And are there 3 parts to that theory?
Yes.
And what are they?
Well, one would be called aloneness, or the sense of isolation, people not understanding. So that is a real difficult challenge for people to face. They feel that they can't fully share with others. Another is burdensomeness. If someone feels that they are a burden to others, that is also something that we find is a component to those who make serious suicide attempts and completions. And third is what I would call capability. So you can have that sense of aloneness. You can have that sense of burdensomeness. But if you don't have the capability of taking your life, you can be very suicidal, but not ultimately accomplish the suicide. It does not mean that you're not suicidal. But that issue of capability is one that's very difficult, because we have a natural will to live. And that is the most difficult thing for people to overcome.
The thing that's you're in meetings with.
So I'm going to fast forward because he's going to bottom line this. I muted you. Sorry, Lauren. It was the pending. You were doing this the whole time.
I thought I muted myself, man. All right. Can you pull up this super chat from Sean, potentially criminal?
Yeah.
It says, thank you for the $5, by the way. The bedside manner of these ADAs has been astonishingly awful. I agree with that. The cross of this guy is a slow burn with a beautiful display of cross-examination. I think the defense attorney is great at what he does.
He's been masterful.
Yeah. The bedside manner of the ADAs, how do I even put that without being inflammatory? I mean,
just
like I said yesterday, they're not likable. These are not likable people. They're doing terrible. I just can't,
They have the bedside manner of Robin Williams. Brace yourself, Effie. Never mind. You totally don't get it. It's from Mrs. Doubtfire. Never mind.
I haven't seen that movie in a long ass time, man.
Well, he says that, and that is what I just never mind. Never mind.
You know what? All right, let's go.
All right, he's going to bottom line his opinions of the case within the next 12 minutes of testimony. I'm just going to let him go.
Ms. Clancy, in your collateral interviews, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not Lindsay Clancy on January 24th, 2023 could appreciate the difference between right and wrong?
Yes.
And what was that opinion?
My opinion is that she did have the capacity to appreciate right from wrong.
And what do you base that on?
Well, on a number of things. Ms. Clancy had just met with her psychiatrist, Dr. Tufts, the day before. And in that discussion with Dr. Tufts, as documented, she denied suicidal ideation, and she also denied thoughts of harm to others. And also there was an ongoing conversation regarding future possible treatments, esketamine or TMS, which I spoke about yesterday, that could be employed to help her. Also, with regard to the appreciation between right and wrong, the planning involved prior to the strangling of her children, I thought was significant. The searches for distance of 3V, the searches of CVS, all done prior to her sending fairly late in the afternoon a text asking her husband if he didn't mind takeout from 3B and then adding on. So that planning, that preparatory planning, I thought was significant. The avoidance of witnesses. A witness during a time when one is committing a crime can intervene, not just report, but also intervene. And so the fact that this was done without any witness present during a time where she had asked the potential witness to go on a longer errand, also I thought was significant. Concealment is another thing that I think indicated an understanding of right and wrong. I mean, the children were strangled all in the basement. And according to Mr. Clancy, the door to his office had been closed when he arrived to the basement. Timing was really, really significant in this. There was a window of time that Ms. Clancy was aware of in which she would need to kill her 3 children as well as to kill herself, which she expected would happen. She was conscious of time and told me that she had mapped out the distance, et cetera, because she didn't want her husband to be gone too long. But in this case, I think the issue of time and her husband returning, rather than being a solution for her, was a problem. And so to accomplish all of this in the course of that amount of time that Mr. Clancy was gone, I thought was significant, really showed an awareness of time. In terms of the weapons used, now these were exercise bands, but they were all near where the children were strangled. They were placed there. That's where they kept those exercise bands. And the exercise bands were nearly identical. I mean, very similar in terms of what they could do as ligatures. And so that use of weapons that were readily available and nearby also was significant to me in terms of her understanding of and planning. I did not see any evidence that she had delusions about her children, delusions as to something wrong with them or something that required them, because of a delusion, that they needed to die. I don't recall that she ever spoke about her children in a delusional way. Now,
We have a question.
Sure. Next question.
Were there other factors that influenced your opinion that she knew the difference between right and wrong?
yes.
And what were they?
Well, the phone call at 5:34 in the afternoon, I thought was significant. So Mr. Clancy was at CVS and he called his wife and she did not pick up. She did not answer, but she called him back and had that ability to deviate from what she was doing to be able to respond. And so had the presence of mind to do that, but also to conceal from him what was going on. Locking the door is another example. I mean, certainly Ms. Clancy was aware of time and the limited amount of time to accomplish this, but by locking the door, it kept her husband from being able to enter the bedroom and therefore being able to see what had happened. So delayed that time.
Can you stop this for a second?
On arrival,
Yes.
her husband.
So what he's saying about the like answering the phone call to kind of delay what's going on as far as the husband not wanting him to come home, locking the door to possibly delay him stopping her in the act. These are all kind of speaking to that, psychotic symptoms that go against your sense of self. And so like, it's kind of speaking to like, this is wrong. And I know that's what they're getting at, but at the same time, it's like, if you really think about it, it's like you wouldn't lock the door from your husband who's coming home to bring you your takeout if you didn't know what you were doing was something you were not supposed to be doing. So it's the way they describe it is, I feel like it's kind of, it's a little, how do I put this? Long-winded almost, but it's what it means is like, you don't do these things if you don't know that you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing. Like you don't stop someone from coming back and stopping you unless you know what you're doing is wrong.
Well, that was kind of my point when we were talking about this a little bit earlier, when I was like, well, what if she acted normal with her husband because she knew that he was going to stop her plans?
Yeah.
In which case she was in the midst of psychosis. And then I got tripped up because, well, the voice didn't start until after the phone call, or was it after he left, or nobody knows. But I'll tell you what, all these are really good points. And I'd imagine they're probably really effective with the jury. But Reddington is going to ask the exact right question.
I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay, while you're doing that, he's going to finish. And, well, she's already gone.
It's going to take him 30 minutes to finish because he has to say 3 more sentences. And he's
got like 5 minutes to go, and then we're going to get to Reddington's cross.
My dude's a slow talker here.
I'll put it at 1.25 speed. How about that? All right, she's gone. Here we go.
And asked her what happened, and she did not confess. She did not tell him what had happened other than, I tried to kill myself. She also did not report auditory hallucinations, but rather said that the children were in the basement. It's my belief that she expected to die, and that by the time Mr. Clancy arrived, she would have successfully been able to take her life.
And sir, did you form an opinion to an unreasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not Lindsay Clancy on January 24th, 2023 had the ability to conform her behavior to the requirements of the law?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Well, if we look at that day, we know that in the morning she took Cora to a pediatrician's appointment. And all physicians receive training in psychiatry, no matter what specialty they go in. That's part of medical school. And so, like other doctors who had seen her who were not psychiatrists at appointments and whatever, the pediatrician also did not notice any unusual things about her. She did not, she was able to conform, right, to the type of behavior that a concerned mother would engage in. She was able to drive to the pediatrician's office and then back. And the day was really one of significant control. The activities that she engaged in that day, spending time with her children with Play-Doh, taking them outside to build a snowman, sending photographs of the children to her mother, to her husband on Instagram, fixing lunch and also fixing dinner for the children. So the activities of that day were controlled, as were the activities in terms of the planning that we already mentioned. So throughout the day, I mean, she was methodical and quite controlled and organized, even in that space of time that was short. There was a lot to do in terms of killing her children and also killing herself. And I would say that the last point with regard to conforming to the law is that when she received the phone call from her husband, she did not report to him that she was in distress, that she was having hallucinations, that she needed help. So with that phone, by calling her husband back and reassuring him by the fact that, yes, she knew the medication, whatever, that helped guarantee that he would continue on the errands. Had she not called him back, it would likely, or it certainly was possible that he would be concerned enough that he would return home. And so I think the phone figures in just in terms of her awareness and conforming her behavior such that the strangling of her children could be concealed.
And
all right. So that's his opinion. His opinion is that she is criminally responsible, in so many words. So
there's a question that I don't think has been, if it's been addressed, remind me, but I can't recall at this moment. She had, access to her providers to the point where she could just message them on the portal and they would get back to her, which is honestly not something that a lot of people can do. I wonder why she didn't message them that day and say, I'm having these thoughts, the thoughts she told her family about. Why didn't she message them that day and say, I'm concerned because I'm having these thoughts that harm is going to befall my children or I'm going to harm them? Why didn't she do that?
Well, she had been doing that for like at least a month and a half.
But if she is now on this day having actual thoughts of harming her children,
maybe she's
why
in the
not at
throes
least
of
reach out?
psychosis. Or like maybe she's in the throes of delusion. Like maybe it's not auditory hallucinations, but maybe her brain chemistry is shifted because she just took SSRIs when she's been diagnosed by the Commonwealth's experts as at least having bipolar 2, possibly bipolar 1, and she was on an SSRI. Perhaps whatever chemical reaction negatively impacts people into psychosis had already taken effect.
Yeah.
Maybe at that point she was no longer at the help-seeking stage. She was in the command hallucination stage, for all I know.
It could be, but then
my
she would need to. Wouldn't she need to tell these experts that?
At what point was she supposed to tell them that? Like, you mean?
I mean, she's describing what happened throughout the day and how she got to this point and when it started. And she's not saying it happened earlier in the day, except in that civil lawsuit she is. So she didn't say anything earlier in the day, is my question. And I know some people are saying, I saw someone in the chat here say, or a couple people here say she'd given up or the time that she was going to reach out to them had passed.
Sure.
But the thing is, that speaks to culpability.
I don't know.
Because if you don't try, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, I think it could possibly speak to culpability a little bit.
I'll tell you what. Having heard all the testimony, having heard all the experts, I would never accuse Lindsay Clancy of not trying. I wouldn't accuse her of giving up.
I wouldn't say she gave up per se. I'm just reading the chat, right? So people say she's like given up, she's done all this and nothing helped. But like, I wouldn't say she gave up per se. I would say that there were times where she didn't necessarily comply with her treatment. I would say not continuing to follow up on talk therapy was a big one, right?
There was one point I remember specifically where I think she told it wasn't Tufts.
Yeah.
It was the nurse practitioner. I forget her name.
There were a couple of those, weren't there?
The very last one.
One of them was Gelada. Does anybody remember the other one?
I don't remember if it was Gelada or if it was the other, but there was one person where she literally said, "I'm having intrusive thoughts of harming the children."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, that's normal. You have postpartum anxiety. That's all.
Yeah.
You'll get over it. Here's the hotline. Call this number. You'll be fine." Is what they told her.
Yeah.
So it's not like she had never disclosed that she was having these intrusive thoughts specifically of harming the children.
Yeah.
I'm 99% sure that came out in testimony. And so
I'm just so I just want to say to people, like, I'm not disputing that this woman went through something awful. I'm just trying to, while we're looking at this testimony, we're listening to this testimony. I know we're about to go through cross, which is going to kind of dismantle a lot of this, but like, I'm trying to see both sides of what people might be thinking when they're listening to all this stuff. So like,
it's a fair question.
Please don't take my questions here or my statements here as I'm trying to condemn her, because I'm not. I'm just trying to ask the kinds of questions that one of those 18 people sitting there might be asking themselves.
It's a fair question. And I think that in my mind, it's not remarkable to me if she was asking for that kind of help and specifically making those representations to the people that were supposed to be helping her since November of 2022 and going into December. And she was incessant with her communications with her doctors. Like, it was over and over and over again. Yeah. She was calling, she was emailing, she was texting, was back and forth. It got to the point where they got sick and tired of her. They didn't want to meet with her in person. Everything was remote. Everything was over the phone. Everything was via Zoom. And then they referred her to this specific program, but she couldn't go because she was overly medicated. And so at this point, if she had been on 13 different medications, one of them was an SSRI, and all of these experts seemed to agree that she was bipolar, perhaps auditory hallucination be damned. As far as timing, she was already in this delusional square space where she just wasn't thinking that way anymore. She was no longer thinking rationally. She was masking. She was masking, right? And then, like Reddington is about to ask, psychosis it could turn on the drop of a dime, couldn't it? Let's get to some of that. Here is some of Reddington's cross.
Studies of the number of women that commit suicide during the postpartum period. Are you aware of that?
I can't quote you a figure.
Do you have any clue at all?
No.
Would you agree with me, sir, that one of the unfortunate components of a woman who has had a baby and is suffering from postpartum depression and living with it, that can, on a dime, turn into postpartum psychosis very quick, right?
It can be rapid.
And you indicated, sir, that there, according to the DSM, is a 4-week cutoff for symptomology, and then you mentioned that there are others. Is it the World Health Organization that you said that talks about a year?
Correct.
There are some other psychiatric organizations that talk about different periods of time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right?
Correct.
So when a woman is dealing with these symptoms and goes to a doctor, or even you, when you're treating, as you indicated 15, 20 years ago, you were treating, is it important to take a blood test?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, my bad. Is it important to take a blood test?
Is it important to take a blood test?
Yeah, you just went through the whole thing about we're going to have the team and they're going to evaluate and we're going to prescribe. I'm just asking, is it important to take a blood test of the patient?
It can be.
Based on what?
Based on the presenting symptoms, based on the history, based on medical history. For example, if someone has recently been in a hospital and been treated, there may not be a necessity for drawing blood again, depending on the types of symptoms that you encounter. It's not a standard that everyone who presents to a psychiatrist requires blood tests.
So if you're a psychiatrist who's been practicing private practice for about, I don't know, a month, maybe two, and is prescribing antipsychotic medications, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor medications, benzodiazepine medications to a young woman who is complaining of what the young woman perceives to be difficulties postpartum, is it important to take a blood test to find out what, if any, prescription drugs they have on board in their system?
To check and find out, do you say what drugs are on board?
Yeah, I mean, you're treating this patient, right? And they're coming off this, hypothetically with you, but they're coming off the street to see a psychiatrist for help, right?
Yes.
And if they're already been prescribed drug after drug after drug by a particular doctor with 2 months of robust experience, is it a fair statement that you should take a blood test of that person?
Well, it really depends on the medication. There are some medications that really require blood test because of levels and like many psychotropic medications are not easily, there's not an easy test for the amount of medication in the system. So it depends on the circumstances and it depends on the medication. I mean, for example, lithium or carbamazepine or valproic acid, those are all mood stabilizers. Certainly taking a blood test would be very important. So it depends.
Depends.
He's going to go more into all the things that they should have noticed but didn't. And so I'm going to fast forward, which we've already heard. I'm going to fast forward to where he talks about sleep deprivation being something that could lead to psychosis, because I thought that was really important.
Yeah. Could you pull up the super chat there? The super thing.
Yes, I can.
Maggie CG, thank you for the 10 joules. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sister with those symptoms.
Now, if somebody, is nervous because they have an exam coming up, or they just can't sleep because maybe they're worried about their job, there's a big difference between that and serious insomnia. Is that true?
Yes.
And Lindsay was suffering very serious insomnia, according to the medical records and her statements to her providers, right?
That's right.
And in fact, when Tufts increased the SSRI 25 to 50, she went 48 hours straight without being able to sleep, right?
That's in the record, yes.
And she went pretty much immediately to Tufts and complained about that and said, I can't sleep. It's 48 hours. I just can't sleep, right?
Yes, I think that was around the 21st of October.
And in your experience with dealing with terrorism and terrorist threats and things like that, would you agree with me that sleep deprivation is used as a torture?
It can be, yes.
And in fact, the side effects, if you will, of a person who's suffering from serious insomnia can actually lead to psychosis, can it not?
Yes, it's possible.
It took him like a minute to answer, I felt like. And the answer to that is obviously yes. Not sleeping will fuck you up.
That was a weird answer to pause on.
It was a very weird answer to pause on. I'm like, yeah, the answer is clearly yes. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. I think most people know if you don't sleep, like, everything gets thrown off. Your mind gets thrown off. You feel like you're operating in slow motion. Sometimes your appetite is thrown off. Like, everything gets fucked up if you don't sleep. It's not good, man.
There was that one famous study about that guy that like tried to stay up for as long as he possibly can. I think he stayed up for like 7 days straight or something like that, just to see what would happen. And they studied him in laboratory setting, and like he was like seeing spiders on the wall and like snakes.
That's a quick way to drive yourself mad, pretty much.
Well, that's what happened, and he was never right after that. I think he had like developed a severe bout of insomnia thereafter, and I think he died before he ever hit the age of 50, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that one. Anyway, I'll continue with this.
That while she's living in her house with her husband, Pat, and their 3 kids, that by all accounts, she was a happy mother, wife, friend, daughter, all of the above, right?
I'm going to fast forward to that because we've heard that stuff before. I wanted, because this kind of addresses sort of your question a little bit at 3:13 about the times that she was reaching out for help leading up to the events when she was trying to get a hold of Aspire.
Somebody in here is asking me about amitriptyline, which is something that she was prescribed. I couldn't remember if she was actually on that or not, if she took it or not, because some of the meds she didn't take longer than a few days. But amitriptyline, like a lot of antidepressants, if you're undiagnosed bipolar, it's not good for you. It can quickly switch your cycle from like a depressive episode to a manic or hypomanic episode. So it would just have the opposite effect. It wouldn't necessarily help with your depressive symptoms if you are bipolar. But I'm not a doctor, so I would keep in mind, I don't know everything that happens when a bipolar patient takes amitriptyline. So that's just what I know. And I would double check that with somebody who has a little more knowledge of how medicines work.
All right.
Sure. Okay.
I already have a script. I don't need it.
Yes.
Among other things, when people are in trouble and they're having dark suicidal thoughts, whether or not it's voices in their head, whether or not it's thoughts that they can't go on anymore, they can't live life, they have to kill themselves, many times they're told to call suicide hotlines, right?
Yes, Aspire.
Aspire. What is Aspire?
I don't know what it stands for, but it is a hotline that Ms. Clancy called twice because of her suicidal ideation.
When did she call Aspire saying that she had thoughts of killing herself?
I can't recall specifically.
But she did call them not once but twice and told them. So she complained and told them that she was going to kill herself, right? Twice. Right?
This guy with the pauses, man.
She spoke to them about suicide.
I think
here's a young woman
some
with
people should
all of what she's
probably
been through.
hear this. When you call the suicide hotline, if you're not in an immediate state where you're going to hurt yourself, you have an idea of how you're going to do it, and you're like, I feel like I definitely want to do this, they're not going to do much for you other than refer you somewhere else. A lot of times that's true. And I think that a lot of people think that you give people the number for the suicide hotline, then they're totally covered if something happens. And unfortunately, a lot of our resources that, the common person would think that to rely on, they don't really do much if you're in a state like this. Like, especially if you're having a constant and, worsening depression, it's like you can tell them you're depressed, you can tell them you're having thoughts, but if you're not like in immediate danger, there's not much they can do for you because of the volume of calls they're getting and what they're equipped to deal with remotely. So a lot of times, yeah, somebody can call the suicide hotline, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get what they need.
Yeah, it's just it's particularly upsetting because that was direct. She was specifically told to do that by the people that were treating her directly, saying, "Oh, you're having these thoughts, you're having these intrusive thoughts, you're having these bad things, whatever. Call the hotline."
So they won't. The hotline, when they call the hotline won't be like, "Well, I think you're fine, bye," but they'll tell you where to go and where to follow up with. And if you don't do that, then again, that would be another thing that I think would kind of speak back to culpability, possibly, if you're considering whether or not she exercised all of her options to get help. I think some people might question that, say like, why didn't you follow up with who they told you to follow up with? Because I know that she did not, based on what we've heard. But they don't make it easy. especially if you're in a depressed state and you are tired of explaining your most embarrassing thoughts and moments over and over again to people, your therapist, whoever, and then you're talking to a stranger on a hotline trying to explain everything you're feeling. Like, the last thing you probably want to do is talk to somebody else, a stranger, you know what I mean? But if you don't do it, the problem is if you end up in a situation like this, it's like somebody might question your culpability. And
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing too. All that is well and good. However, she's not going to be acquitted based on her exhausting all of her options. She might have been an imperfect patient, but that doesn't mean she didn't have a psychotic event that led to the ultimate events that brought this trial. And so the question is, the relevant question is she criminally culpable because she couldn't distinguish between right and wrong, or she couldn't conform her behavior. That's it. Those are the two issues. If one of those two are true, then she's not criminally culpable.
And I do get caught up in the, was there something she can do that she didn't do, just because I think that they could harp on that in a way where it's like, well, she says she asked for help and was screaming for help and did everything she could, but technically she didn't. And that's what I think the prosecution could have gone with. It'd just be like, she didn't do this, she didn't do that, she didn't follow up with this, she didn't take this medication longer than, and I know they've talked about some of those points, but I guess that's kind of where my mind goes, because I'm thinking about what would the other side of this argument be? Because my personal experience with patients and otherwise is, this is a very difficult thing to do. And like, you can exhaust all of your energy trying to do the right things, and it still won't get you anywhere. But on the other side of that, I have to think about what might be going through somebody else's mind if you're thinking about these kids that were killed and the autopsy photos you were shown and the 911 call you heard. You got to exhaust every avenue probably in your mind to kind of reconcile, I'm going to find this person not guilty, so let me make sure I consider every aspect.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the prosecution spent a great deal of their case trying to prove that, look, her medical care might not have been perfect, but it certainly didn't help the fact that she didn't follow any singular plan. She kept on changing medications. She wasn't following doctor's instructions. She didn't take her medications as prescribed. She kept on wanting to change this or that. And so imperfect patient, imperfect medical care. Yeah. Got it. Did it lead to a psychosis is the question.
Yeah, you can do all the right things for so long, and then at some point you get exhausted and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. Or at some point you like give up hope with different medications and be like, I know this isn't going to help me. It's just going to make me feel worse. It's going to keep me up at night, and this is already being a problem for me. And all of those things can make a horrible difference in the wrong direction for you. But then when people are listening to cases like this, all they're going to hear sometimes, some people who already have especially a preconceived notion of how postpartum depression and psychiatry work, they might think, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And they're not going to consider that you've been through this awful, exhausting period in your life where you're like, I can't do this by myself anymore, and nobody's, giving me exactly what I need. But, they're going to think, well, there was more you could have done and you didn't do it. So.
There's certainly those that think like that. I know, because I've seen them in the comments, for sure.
And some of them are going to be, some of them are probably going to be on the jury.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying it's not out of the realm possibility of a mistrial. Yeah. I am betting that this case is not going to be a mistrial. I'd be surprised if it was. Right. I'm predicting a verdict by Friday. Mm-hmm. If it's not a verdict by Friday, then the chances of mistrial go up exponentially. Yeah. That's what I will say.
Who now is to the verge of killing herself and reaches out to people that her healthcare providers told her to call for help, said that she was going to kill herself. And what did Aspire do?
As I understand, they redirected her to her provider. They did not make a decision to hospitalize or to recommend hospitalization.
They didn't make a decision to do anything.
Objection.
Yeah, so you can form that as a question, please.
Did you read the records dealing with Aspire? Did they do anything other than tell her, no, you're not someone that we can help?
I know that they were not responsive
We're in the freaking
to
Twilight
her
Zone here. Oh my
suicidality
God.
because she did not
Well,
indicate that she had planned.
And did you read a transcript or listen to a tape, or how do you know that?
You got this, brother. Come on.
I
Dude,
recall it someplace in the documents.
I'm so
it being
tempted to
referred
like
to,
fast forward it to
but I
150.
can't tell you exactly where.
just put it at 1.5.
So this, sir, obviously is a murder trial, and you are a witness for the government, and you've indicated
go.
that you've read the records. You just told this jury that in the conversation that she had with the people from Aspire that she expressed suicidal ideation, was asked if she had a plan. Where are you getting that from?
He like freezes. He malfunctions.
He's a smart guy.
Exactly.
He needs to
This is
reboot.
frustrating as hell.
How about the second time she called Aspire? Why would she call Aspire again if they wouldn't help her the first time? In your opinion, as a psychiatrist, looking for help,
Continuing to seek help.
and yet
I don't know, Lauren. I disagree with you, man. I feel like the doctors referred her to Aspire. Aspire referred her back to the doctors, and she was right back where she started from. None of the doctors compared notes. They all had different diagnoses for her. They all had different plans for her. I'm not going to fault her for being an imperfect patient, given the level of care that she received. And I don't want the case to be about that either. It's just,
It's not so much that I fault her as that I'm trying to consider, where someone may find fault in her, because I understand that like she's going to a bunch of different providers, right? They're not coordinating the care because at a lot of places, even outpatient places you go to, they don't have adequate resources to have like a care manager following up with you every step of the way. And those are the people who should be coordinating from provider to provider. If you switch providers, you should be able to get your records from them. It should be really easy to communicate and to transition, but that's not the case with a lot of these places, with a lot of these doctors. So especially if you're working with somebody through, like a small practice where they don't have staff. And I don't know if that was the case with any of these providers. I can't recall. But it's like it's not that easy to coordinate care. And if you're already dealing with feeling like overloaded by the burden of the mental illness you're experiencing, you're not going to want to be your own care coordinator. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying I should fault her for that per se, but I'm saying like somebody could, if they were being harsh, if they were thinking the other side, find fault in that if they really wanted to.
You know what I think?
If they really wanted to. Like if they're thinking there are 3 dead kids here, I just want to blame the mother, that they could do that.
Sure. Well, hell, why not blame Patrick while you're at it? I mean, hell, we've seen.
I think they do. Yeah, I think they do. I think most people do, unfortunately. But
it's Lindsay's fault, and then it's Patrick's fault, and then it's the grandmother's fault because of mortal sin. But it just people are all over the place.
Yeah.
Anyway, I forgot if the guy was rendering an answer.
again,
which
she
time?
didn't get any, did she?
You know what? I'm going to fast forward to the thing that we were going to get to that we had talked about before.
Yeah,
the 911 tape leading into the thing about malingering and lying and misleading the family. All of that. That was way more. We know about all this stuff already. And if not, most of us have already made up our minds about it. But I'm going to fast forward to 402. He's going to talk a little bit about that 911 call. Oh, boy. All right.
You got it.
Would you agree, sir, that struck to the issue of Patrick was actually speaking with Lindsay as she's laying prostrate in the snow on the ground with a broken neck and slashes and slits?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear her response to Patrick's comment, "What did you do?"
No.
Did you hear her respond to anything other than what would be described as guttural grunts?
Not on that call.
So when this conversation occurred, and this is the conversation that you're talking about, where she said, "I tried to kill myself, kids are in the basement." He then goes into the house, right?
Correct.
All right. So now we have the EMTs and people are helping her out. We've seen the medical records. You know what the injuries were. You know the damage to her throat. You know the damage to her thyroid, right?
Yes.
And is it your testimony to a reasonable degree of doctor certainty that a person with those injuries, with the prescription drugs that were crushed up that she consumed, with a broken neck, would be able to have a conversation?
Based on
I would say,
the
hold on
witness
there.
testimony
Hold on.
from her husband, yes.
So
Okay.
with the prescription drugs that she crushed up, I think we haven't really established what was going on there. I think he did question what the residue was. So I think that is something that I would pause on, but he didn't. So let's go ahead.
Well, I think the toxicology came back and she wasn't on any drugs at the time, which also
Correct. She had like therapeutic levels of certain psych drugs, but she didn't have any like, any overdose or anything like that in her system. Correct.
Right. So I think we've answered that question, honestly. Although the therapeutic levels and all whatnot, I think the SSRI chemical negative reactions are still in play.
Right.
But,
That's right. Yeah.
all right.
The witness testimony from Patrick aside for a minute, and you listened to the 911 call. Are you telling this jury that she had a conversation that you could discern what she was saying?
Not on the 911 call.
No. Would you agree that they were all grunts?
Yes, from what I heard.
So Patrick goes in the house, relates the fact that he found the children, and you told the jury that his office door was closed, is what he said. Is that right?
Yes.
Where did you get that from?
I believe Patrick told me that.
Is that in your report?
Yes.
And when he told you that, when was that conversation that you had with Patrick?
When I interviewed Patrick Clancy.
Okay. So you read the grand jury minutes, right?
Yes.
You read the police report, right?
Yes.
You know that Patrick went up the stairs, and when he went up the stairs, the door was locked, right? Meaning the bedroom door, not the office door.
Correct.
And then he was able to open the door, right?
Yes.
And there was blood on the doorknob, right?
There was blood in the room
Describe the room
on the floor.
Certainly, you already talked. We'll talk about that. But there's blood on the doorknob, right? Was there blood on the doorknob? If you know,
I don't recall.
do you recall there being blood drops in the area of the door itself, like where you have the threshold? But what appeared to be blood, because nobody tested it, we don't know what it is, but it appeared to be blood.
I don't recall the specific. I know that there was blood that was observed.
Okay, and you would agree that there was a lot of blood drops, drips on the mirror, drops on the floor, drops on the nightstand, right?
That's my recollection.
And you looked at the photographs in your investigation and looked at the testimony, third-party collaterals, as you testified yesterday, right?
Yes.
And you told the jurors that one of the things that was of interest to you is the fact that there was a glass or a wine mug or something that had crushed narcotics or I think you used the word antipsychotic drugs crushed up inside that cup. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
Wine tumbler.
Thank you. How do you know they were antipsychotic drugs?
I don't
Good
recall
question.
saying that they were antipsychotic drugs.
Oh, did you say they were drugs?
I thought I said medications.
Medications. All right, so drugs, medications, and they were crushed up?
There was evidence of powder on the tumbler that Patrick told me about, and I went back and looked more closely at the photographs and saw that.
Did you look more closely at the NMS laboratory or the State Police Crime Laboratory or any testing that was done on the powder?
Yes.
And was there a report that said that indeed it was crushed up medication?
They wouldn't.
And there is,
They didn't indicate whether or not they were pills or
did they ever, I'm not asking about pills or powder, did they ever test the residue?
not that I'm aware of.
So how do we know that that's even drugs or medications or whatever word you want to use?
It was Patrick Clancy's observation.
So basically, when you're testifying, sir, and you're waxing on about all of the facts of the case that you took into consideration prior to your opinion for the DA in this case, you're getting a lot of it from Patrick, is that right?
That aspect he brought up to me. Yes.
Okay. So the crushing of the pills, was there a pill crusher found in the bedroom?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was there any residue found anywhere in the bedroom?
Not that I'm aware of.
So if someone's in a psychotic state and they're going to kill themselves and they're taking the pills, yesterday you said the fistful of pills, and then the DA said after a painful questioning that they were crushed, you agreed that they were crushed. Wouldn't there be a residue?
A residue?
Yeah, you know what a residue is, right?
Yes.
Was there a residue on the table, on the nightstand, anywhere?
Not that I saw.
So there's no pill crusher, right?
Not that I saw.
There's no investigation by the police to determine what was in that powder, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
There's no indication that there's any residue on or in the actual nightstand next to the bed, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Does it seem appropriate, sir, that a person would be in a psychotic state after slashing their wrist and slicing their throat and ready to propel themselves out a window would neatly put the bottles into the drawer of the nightstand? Or would they just scatter them around the bedroom floor, not caring?
I'm not aware of the exact sequence of the events in
Well,
terms
if I
of,
tell you, sir, that a couple of days after this incident, I went into the home with Patrick, and I was able to locate in the bedroom, right next to the bed, with all the blood all over the place, this drawer, and inside this drawer would be a lot of medication bottles. Does that refresh your memory on your investigation as to what happened to the
I like the way he says draw.
bottles? They're all empty.
yes.
Okay, so how'd they get in the drawer?
How did they get in the drawer? I don't know.
You can fingerprint them, right? Did anybody do any testing at all in this investigation? If you know, you told the jury yesterday you read all the stuff, grand jury minutes, police reports, lots of witnesses.
I did not read that.
Is it your understanding, sir, that a person can be in a state of psychosis and I guess misremember something?
Yes,
Or have a false memory?
it's possible.
Did Lindsay tell you that she slashed the screen with the big turkey knife?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, did she tell you that she slashed the screen with the knife before she went out the window?
Yes, that's what she told me.
But the screen wasn't slashed, was it? Do you think she was malingering?
Look at that. And so a lot's been made about the screen not being slashed, but Lindsay swears up and down she slashed the screen with the, I guess he called it the turkey knife. She recollects lemonade and crushed up pills. Patrick doesn't see or remember or recall even having lemonade in the house.
Right.
And so the fact that she's getting some of this stuff wrong, is that an indicator that she's lost touch with aspects of reality? Or do we just chalk this up to imperfect memory?
I'm really not sure. I have no idea.
She clearly has a different version of this in her head than everybody else.
She, depending on the time and who she's talking to, apparently she does have some different versions of events. However, I don't know about the lemonade thing, dude. That's kind of odd.
Well, the lemonade thing is not remarkable unless you just take an effect. I'm thinking about the way that this appeared in her head, and I'm having to get it secondhand from all of these other people that say that they've talked to her, right?
Yeah.
But the slashing of the screen is a big one. She remembers slashing a screen. The reality is nobody slashed a screen.
Mm-hmm.
The lemonade being a thing to her, but not to anybody else, or not in reality. I don't think they even found lemonade.
Oh, Samsara Singh says, Omar, she sold Beachbody mixes. Lemonade is their #1 brand.
Well,
I forgot about that.
That's well, I guess that kind of makes that a trick question then, does it? We didn't have lemonade, but there was certainly lemonade flavored powders.
Hold on. Wait, so could that have been the residue even? Just the powder?
Sure. I was also thinking about times where I have put flour in a beverage.
Yeah.
Or like some kind of powdery substance. And that the only time I tried to do that was to resurrect eggnog that overcooked or something. It didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bad idea. But residue from like a lemonade powdered flavored thing would make sense. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Lying to you at that point, sir, when she told you that?
No.
Because one of the things you told this jury is that what stood out to you is, I think you made reference to the fact that Lindsay betrayed her family by misleading her family. Remember saying that to this jury yesterday, sir?
Portrayed?
Betrayed is what you said.
No, I said portrayed.
So Lindsay portrayed and misled her family, is what you said to the jury?
Yes.
How'd she mislead her family?
Well, in text messages, for example, in the days prior to the event, her parents had visited over that weekend, and the communications that she was providing did not give a sense of her state of mind regarding suicidality.
You kidding me? They stayed up in their house to help them.
Sustained.
They stayed at the house, didn't they?
Yes.
Why did they stay at the house?
Are you kidding
I'm
me?
sorry.
Got me a
Why
little
did they
bit.
stay at the house?
They were visiting.
They were staying at the house. They weren't
Forgivable.
just visiting.
Objection.
Overall.
Sleepover?
As I understand.
Okay, as you understand.
He does this thing where it just gets really passionate, but it's the opposite of when the Commonwealth does it. When he does it, like it's like he's flabbergasted and offended at these answers and their conclusions to the point where it makes sense why he's saying those things. When the Commonwealth does it, it's like they're trying to manufacture something that they saw from a Matthew McConaughey movie or something.
The Bible. They saw it in the Bible.
Maybe
It's a mortal sin. Yep.
Mortal sin, yeah.
How long did they stay at the house and sleep over?
I think they came up for that weekend. They weren't there constantly.
No,
They came back and forth.
back and forth. Well, they stayed, well, 1, 2, 3, about 4 days, 3 nights. They stayed continuously and stayed at the Clancy home. You knew that from your investigation, right?
Yes, that's my
Yes.
reflection.
The answer is yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they're staying at the same time. You're telling this jury that she's sending text messages basically saying, I'm okay, I guess. Is that right?
Following their departure, there were the photographs that Lindsay Clancy sent to her mother.
She didn't send a mother photograph showing that she was smiling or happy with her family, did she?
I think there was a photograph of her and the children by the snowman.
No. Is that a bad thing to do that and send a picture of you with your kids making a snowman to your parents?
No,
Is that something, in your opinion, Dr. Saathoff's opinion for the district attorney, that a person who is involved with postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, wouldn't take a picture of the snowman and their kids, send it to their mother?
given the prior text that you showed to her mother in terms of being in terrible distress, that she was able to do that. That was not what happened when she sent the picture with their children, the snowman, and so did not raise concerns from the mother, as I understand.
Did you talk to the mother?
Pardon me?
Did you talk to the mother?
No, I tried to.
Did you review police reports or statements? You tried to? How'd you do that? Would you call her up and say, I want to talk to you?
No.
Did the district attorney call him up?
I asked Ms. Clancy who would be good for me to speak with, and she said her husband and her family.
Okay, so based on that, what did you do?
I contacted the district attorney, and I,
Which one? Which one of these two?
Ms. Sprague.
Ms. Sprague. Okay, you spoke to Jen Sprague, and what did you say
Attorney
to her?
Sprague.
Was it?
Attorney Sprague.
You spoke to Jen Sprague, and what did she tell you?
Attorney Sprague.
She told me that she would,
Not for nothing, man, but what a cunt. For her to interrupt his cross-examination to correct him on, it's actually Attorney Sprague, sir. Listen, Jennifer. It's basically what he did. And then
Do you want
continues
to be called Attorney Serrato?
I don't give a shit what you call me. It makes no difference to me, honestly. It really doesn't. You call me Omar, you call me attorney, counselor, I don't care. But the fact that she felt the need to correct him in real time on his cross, that's the most douchebaggery thing that she's done. Well, maybe not that.
I don't think that's the most
Not the most douchebaggery thing, but it was a stupid thing to do in that moment.
Yeah.
It was wow to that. Jesus.
reach out and attempt to see if I could interview Mr. Clancy and Ms. Clancy's family.
Okay, so did you do that? Did you reach out to her mother?
Did I reach out?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, did someone tell you that she wouldn't speak to you?
Yes.
And when was this, sir? About 2 months ago?
It would have been probably June 5th.
This is August, right?
Pardon
This
me.
is August. We're in August right now, right?
Yes.
You called to speak to the mother in June, right? Yes? Come on.
Yes.
Okay. And when you called the mother, did she say?
I did not call the mother.
Okay, so the
I did
answer
not
is you
call
did
the
not
mother.
call the mother. Who told you that you couldn't talk to the
A
mother?
little testy there.
Ms. Sprague.
Attorney Sprague, please.
Right. Attorney Sprague.
Now, when Attorney Sprague called you and said you cannot talk to the mother, did it ever occur to you to reach out to me? You're being objective and all.
No.
Did you know, sir, that Lindsay had signed repeatedly every and any HIPAA form that was needed by the DA or the cops to get access to every single medical record that she had, probably going back to when she was in grammar school? Did you know that?
I know she's been
That's
open to
again.
it,
It took
and she
forever
told
for
me
him to
that
answer again.
I would.
Yeah.
But
She would like for me to speak
that's
with it.
that's perfect as long as
She's
she
been
doesn't do a
open-
Laura Owens and give the wrong year.
Oh well, or change the location,
Yeah.
or a number of things.
No
Jesus,
Laura Owens releases, please.
please. Oh, that name.
To pretty much anything and everything that was asked of him, as far as signing documents, getting medical records, doing interviews, videotaping, making appointments to talk to guys like Mac and Helbrun and you in Tewksbury Hospital, right?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
All of your investigations, sir, led up to the fact that you were going to meet with Lindsay 2 months ago, 2 months prior to our beginning this 5-week triple murder trial. Is that fair?
That's true.
And you told this jury that you wanted to establish a rapport with this kid?
Yes.
Do you think for 1 minute, when you're trying to put her in jail for her life, that she wants to talk to you and have a
Sustained.
rapport?
Sustained. Next question.
Did you establish a rapport?
I believe so.
She was cooperative.
Yes.
She was polite.
Yes.
She was pleasant.
Yes. And I asked her at the end if there was any question that I'd asked that made her feel uncomfortable, and she responded in a positive way.
Okay. One of the things that you told the jury is that you felt that she was malingering, or basically lying. I guess you were telling the jury, in your opinion, that she was making stuff up to make herself look like she's crazy when she killed the children. Is that what you told the jury?
I didn't use those words.
No. You're a little more finesse than I was. But nevertheless, sir, you're talking about malingering, right?
A little.
Go ahead, think about it.
Yes, the
It'll
statements
take a few
about
minutes.
the auditory
Answer is yes.
hallucination.
Excuse me.
Yes.
The answer is yes. You were talking about malingering is my question. Yes or no, right? That's all.
Yes.
Okay. And when you're talking about malingering, sir, basically that
There's no reason for him to have to pause on that question. He knows what malingering means. They're just. I don't care how old he is. I don't care how careful he's being. There's no reason for that long pause. It's starting to piss me off at this point.
would be when a person
Yeah.
finds it in their interest to basically exaggerate or lie to an investigating psychiatrist, right?
Correct.
And that would be because it's in their interest, like I want to pretend that I'm crazy so a jury thinks I'm crazy and I don't have to pay for a crime. That would be in a criminal sense, right?
Yes.
Workman's comp cases, a guy gets hurt in the truck and then they end up having interviews with guys like you to make sure to see if in fact they're legitimately hurt for a workman's comp claim, right?
Yes.
Or a civil case, like an auto accident, right?
Yes.
And there are tests that can be administered to people to see, from a psychiatrist standpoint, whether or not there is objective indicia of the fact that the person is indeed malingering.
Yes.
And what are those tests?
Well, I'm not a neuropsychologist, but there's a test called the SIRS, also the TOMS, test of memory. So there are certain tests that can be given by neuropsychologists to assess malingering about certain aspects, certain issues.
You've also heard, I imagine, of the MMPI, which is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory Test, right?
Yes.
And that's one that has different scales that you can examine to determine if somebody is lying or malingering or exaggerating or anything like that, right?
Correct.
And you know that Dr. Helbrun administered that very test to Lindsay about, 2 months before you got there, right?
Yes.
Which would be about 4 months from now, where we stand now, right?
Something like that.
And would you agree, sir, that even though it would have been perhaps better to actually meet with Lindsay within the first 6 months after the incident, or a year even, or maybe even 2 years, but nevertheless, it still has reliability and validity, does it not, when it's administered to her?
The MMPI does, yes.
Okay. And you know, sir, that she, in fact, had no impact on the scales at all, with the exception of likelihood of suicide.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Indicating that
I'm going to fast forward a little bit because a lot of this gets repetitive, but
Okay.
we're going to hit the highlights and then we're going to probably wrap up pretty soon.
Sounds good. If you do a little bit of the charge conference before we sign off.
Sure.
and externally located voices are atypical. We cite a particular word, correct?
Yes.
For example, in that sense, the largest study on this question, Matthew Jones, was in 2012. That's what you're referring to as the old research, right? Oh, but one other thing, you were in med school at the time, that too.
Yeah, I was speaking about very
Okay. basically found that of 199 psychiatric patients, 81% who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia. 38% heard both voices coming from inside and outside their head. Did I read that right?
You did.
So when Lindsay indicated to you that she indeed heard a loud auditory hallucination voice, deep male, commanding her to do what she told you, that was external, correct?
Yes.
And you don't have any issues with that. In other words, that is very likely could be legitimate.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you take a young woman who, as the evidence has shown, is suffering with her medical condition and psychiatric condition and seeing doctors and being prescribed medications and reaching out to people for help and suicide hotlines and people down in Rhode Island and McLean Locked Wards Institute. If I hold an opening statement, sir, would you agree that in her efforts to maintain control, she, meaning Lindsay, withheld?
Form the question.
Yeah, if we could approach.
Sure.
Attorney Sprague may approach.
Well, Jennifer,
It's Attorney Sprague. Please.
all right. Here we go.
Reports, statements of witnesses, grand jury, photographs, videos, interviews of Lindsay, review of witness statements, all of that you told us yesterday that you reviewed. That in fact, on January 24th of 2023, Lindsay made a calculated decision. She was a woman who no longer liked the life she thought she wanted. It was getting harder and harder for her to control, and when she saw the opportunity to escape, she made the selfish choice to take it, and to take Cora, Dawson, and Callan first, before attempting to take her own life. Continuing on, sir, she chose to manipulate her providers, seek out a quick and easy fix when she was feeling depressed and anxious, and when she didn't get what she expected, she chose the alternate route. She would seek a different doctor. She would change medications after days. She disengaged from treatment that she didn't like the plan, and after only 4 months in treatment, she made a choice, a deliberate and intentional decision that she did not want to try anymore. And because no one could take care of her kids the way she wanted them to, she had to take them with her too. Would you agree that the evidence, in your opinion, supports that contention, sir?
Well, there's a lot in that.
Yeah, it is. Do you agree that it would support your contention, sir, or it would not?
I think that statement that you read really minimizes what she was going through.
Okay.
Yikes.
And in case you missed it, that was the Commonwealth's opening statement that he read.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That's Attorney Sprague must be thrilled.
Listen, Jennifer, I'm reading your statement, all right? I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, that's just rough.
Well, that was that. I mean, that's pretty much the crux. I mean, we got Saathoff's testimony, and it's, you want to go over the charging conference or the charge conference?
Yeah, let's go over a little bit of the charge. It's like 30 minutes. I don't want to watch the whole thing. But
Yeah, well, it's like 18.
You
We're not going to
watch
watch the whole thing, but we'll go
Yeah.
over some of the crux of it. And I think it started at like...
some people had some questions about it. Like they were asking why manslaughter would be appropriate in this case. And I know he talks
I
about
could
it
answer
there.
that right now. We don't even go...
Yeah.
I mean, number one.
Well, I still want to watch some of it, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll watch some of it, but this is the thing. Reddington basically asked for a bunch of things, but he needed a vehicle for the jury to consider. Maybe they don't believe that she had postpartum psychosis, but maybe that there was postpartum depression and then the medication evidence combined to give them some avenue other than first-degree premeditated murder. And so therefore the manslaughter instruction. And so by giving the manslaughter instruction or having that as an avenue for the jury, it gives them some leeway if they're not sold on the psychosis theory, but they also don't think that it was premeditated first-degree murder either. They're giving them a middle ground. But the interesting thing they did about it, that they did here, is they didn't label it, or they're not going to label it as intentional or involuntary manslaughter. It's simply going to be manslaughter, like reckless behavior with reckless disregard for human life. They go into some of that stuff. But the whole purpose of it is just to give the jury another avenue if they're not sold on the psychosis idea.
Mm-hmm.
because as we know, the context might have been there, but it's like 2 in 1,000 cases, right? Something like that. And so he's just trying to open up some leeway for Lindsay, basically, for this jury, giving them permission to do to find her guilty, just not a first-degree murder, if they think it's inappropriate. I gotta find where it was.
Can you go to the private chat and pull this video up, and I'll show you where the timestamp is. I'm gonna go to.
How do I get to the private chat again?
So see, we're in the right hand side, that panel with the chat in it.
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, so pull that up.
Oops.
Close enough.
Oh, look at you. You got it all. Here. Oops. I got to share the screen first, don't I?
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay, and I'm going to go to about 23 minutes, so we'll just watch the last 10 minutes of this, and that'll be it.
Okay. 23.
Yeah, just about 23:00. Yeah, that'll do it right there.
Close enough.
Manslaughter.
You might want to theater mode.
On the involuntary intoxication. And finally, I would
back up a little bit because he was saying something really important.
A disease consistent with voluntary manslaughter. So that would be voluntary manslaughter. The willful wanton conduct would be involuntary manslaughter. Reasonable doubt obviously is fine. All the rest of the instructions that you gave or that you would give are fine. I would ask that the court consider the prospect, and by way of considering involuntary intoxication. And I did cite a couple of cases, Como versus Wallace and Darsh, Piantadozzi, as it relates to evidence of involuntary intoxication. And that would apply if, in fact, there's no intentional ingestion of cocaine or some type of illicit drug, but in fact, it's a prescription drug that she was ingesting consistent with the drug instructions, if you will. You know, the drug laboratories and the pharmaceutical companies, they market these products. They have, some of them have black box warnings on them. We've talked about that a little bit in this trial, talked about the age cutoff, but nevertheless, it's scary stuff. You're talking the selective serotonin uptake inhibitors, you're talking about tricyclics, you're talking about antipsychotics. So if in fact this young lady did not have a disease or a defect that rose to the level of lack of criminal responsibility, but as a result of the drugs that she was prescribed, not abusing, not mixing with illegal or illicit drugs, that would allow a jury to determine that it would be manslaughter based upon the involuntary intoxication. And finally,
This is
I would
what
ask that the court entertain giving a Bowden charge in this case. We know that the case law under Commonwealth versus Bowden allows the court, upon evidence presented to a jury, of inadequate police investigation. Because if you recall, way back in the day on this case, I did move for a bifurcation, and my argument to the court was that defendants in lack of criminal responsibility cases are really hogtied, if you will, because to have the lack of criminal responsibility, you have to admit involvement in the crime, but yet when you're trying the case with lack of criminal responsibility, the government still has the burden to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of, based on the evidence, that particular crime. And if there's evidence of a police investigation that is deficient, a jury does have a right to consider that as a basis of an acquittal. They can consider that for purposes of finding reasonable doubt based upon the lousy investigation. In this case, it wasn't just a lousy investigation. It wasn't even an atrocious investigation. It was no investigation. In this case, Judge, the police, I think we all would agree, even the government, they basically accepted the fact that she strangled the kids are in the basement, she's guilty, and we move on. They didn't investigate anything. They didn't test.
Can you pause that for a sec?
They didn't even take a
Yes.
I would disagree that there was no investigation. I think I would encourage people to read it's like
The judge
220
disagreed, too.
pages. What's that?
The judge disagreed too.
Right. And there's like 220 pages of a affidavit and everything that went into the arrest that explains what they did and what they went through to clear Patrick and also to confirm that she, in fact, was the suspect at that point. So, like, it's not like there was no investigation. I understand why he's arguing that. I do agree that they didn't do some things that they could have done and probably should have done, like testing the residue, for example.
That's going to be true of any criminal case, though. Like,
Right.
there's never going to be a perfect investigation.
Right, but I think that confuses some people because they see that and they think that's like a death blow to the case of the prosecutors and to the police. It's not. They didn't do a perfect job or even a great job, but it doesn't mean that they didn't do enough to establish that she was the suspect.
You also have to understand that every defense attorney that's ever tried a case, every single trial that they ever try is going to make this argument that the investigation was so shoddy that it shouldn't be considered at all, and therefore my client should be not guilty because the state didn't bother to properly investigate anything. That's always going to be the argument, and it's never going to work.
And look, if they had such a good argument for that, they would have argued that she didn't do it, right? They would have tried to argue that she didn't do it and that the police didn't really investigate and that there was possibly another person who committed the murders, but they didn't do that, and there's a reason they didn't do that.
I don't imagine part of the problem is, like, in his opening statement, he basically conceded that Lindsay did it.
Yeah, right.
And so there was never something that they had to prove. It was never something that the state was on notice that they had to prove because it was basically a concession. However, they did put on enough evidence, and even all the stuff that you laid out, not all of that is in the evidence, but there is enough in there. They did enough with the medical, the forensics, with some of the more salacious and grotesque evidence that they peppered the jury with for like the first 6 days of trial to establish something in the investigation. Even if it was a D- investigation, it was still enough. Where this motion was never going to work.
And I think a lot of people who are not used to watching this stuff or hearing about investigations or what into an investigation, they're like, they didn't leave no stone unturned, therefore they must be wrong and somebody else must have done. That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and that's also an unrealistic expectation of anybody, of anything. They didn't check in between the molecules or whatever. Nobody's going to do that. It's just I
do want to hear what the prosecution said, because I didn't actually get to hear what the prosecution said in response. I know the judge denied that, but I don't know what they had to say.
I will just resume.
Picture of the screen. They didn't see if there's any blood on the screen. There's no crushers for the alleged crushing of the medications. There's no indication that there's powder that she was crushing the medication to ingest the medication. There's all sorts of questions regarding the blood spatter, the blood. The police never investigated. They come into the court, they talk about their investigation through the crime scene laboratory and state police. And every question that I would ask about the door, about the blood drop on the door, about the siding, they come 6 months later or whatever, they take the siding, it's degraded, they can't even test it. I could go on and on and on with the horrific investigation in this case. So I think it would be fair for the court to instruct them on Bowden. That's it.
All right. Commonwealth, I know there was there were 2 requests I think there were, you may not have been aware of, but I want to give you an opportunity to be heard. One is the Bowden instruction. Also, one is the voluntary manslaughter. Before I let you do that, if I'm looking at the instruction that I have as a possible instruction regarding involuntary manslaughter, Mr. Rankin, if we took the word involuntary out of there, doesn't that instruction there apply to the argument that you're making, considering the last paragraph?
I'm sorry, which paragraph?
Yeah, up on page 8.
Okay.
We're talking about the manslaughter instruction.
Yes, I do.
It's been in the last paragraph. It talks about the ability to consider evidence from either a mental impairment or consumption of prescription drugs.
I agree with that, Your Honor. If we were to fashion that, I think that instruction would.
So just one instruction.
Involuntary doesn't really matter.
That's what I wanted. That's kind of what.
Yeah. So what he's getting at there is kind of like what I was alluding to. Like, you don't want to have the jurors sit there and be okay, because in Massachusetts, it's basically an unlawful killing with malice aforethought, basically first-degree murder, your common first-degree murder. It's either that or she's not criminally culpable. So they're giving her this idea that they consider there's this specific jury instruction that's apparently already in there, in the proposed jury instructions, that the jury is allowed to consider mental impairment or the consumption of prescription drugs when deciding whether or not the Commonwealth proved the mental elements of murder.
Yeah.
And if they're considering that might not necessarily lead to malice aforethought. Therefore, manslaughter could be a thing. If they're not sold on the postpartum psychosis, manslaughter is available to them, but it's something less than first degree. It takes away the jury being forced with having to deal with these two extremes. It gives them this middle ground.
Yeah, I think that if you're a juror in this case, and I think a lot of people forget that they've seen some extremely traumatic things that we have not seen or heard. I think that would give me some leeway. I would feel a little better about that than I would feel about one or the other on the more extreme end of things. Yeah.
And the reason why Reddington is like, yes, because he doesn't want this to be an all or nothing proposition, because they're not buying the postpartum thing. And there's certainly enough to consider that the jury might not buy the postpartum thing, psychosis, I mean.
Right.
He doesn't want it to go to all, then it's definitely just going to be
murder. Yeah.
Murder, right. So the manslaughter option is the middle ground. And it allows the jury to consider the prescription drugs, the postpartum depression, and all the rest of it, all the things that they worked so hard to get into the evidence, but with respect to the context that might have led to a psychosis, they get to consider that now. And that's going to matter a great deal if she's convicted of manslaughter when it comes to sentencing.
I think that's where they're going to land. I do. I think that's where they're going to land. I think that if I'm just reading about and listening to people who are in the courtroom who saw the things we haven't seen, I think that considering that and then considering everything we've seen and heard here, I think they're going to land on manslaughter.
It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. Given these jury instructions, it makes a lot of sense that they're just going to, screw it.
I've been really sad that they're going to find her not guilty by reason of insanity, but I didn't totally understand the manslaughter thing. So considering everything that we've just talked about, I do think that they're going to land on manslaughter.
Yeah, well, that's the instruction they're going to get. It gives the jury the ability to acknowledge that she was heavily medicated, to acknowledge that she was clearly mentally ill, but not give her the ultimate first-degree murder verdict.
Okay.
If I give it, it would just be one instruction, and I wouldn't name it either involuntary or voluntary. It would just be if I give that. Okay. All right. And I think Attorney Buckingham.
The fact that he takes involuntary or voluntary out of it and just keeps it at manslaughter matters a lot, because it will cause a juror to overthink it. Don't worry about involuntary or voluntary. It's manslaughter. Right. It's different from murder. It's manslaughter. That's all.
I know the Commonwealth objects to that anyway, so I'm not asking for the assent on that. But what about the Bowden instruction?
So, Your Honor, we would object to the Bowden instruction. Again, counsel is free to argue whatever he wants, substitute investigation in this case. But as far as failures of the investigation that have been identified in the course of the trial, I don't see there is any. Everything that
are you able to
but they didn't test,
put on the captions? See the CC over there on the right hand in the bottom corner?
Yes.
Hit that, yeah, there you go.
And test the screen. Well, there's clear photographs of the screen and the condition of the screen, and that was very apparent. That was done on the day of the incident. It was documented. Witnesses testified about that. Witnesses gave statements about the window in and of itself. The blood on the outside of the house was observed.
Jen, I'm going to need you to speak into the mic. All right, Jennifer, if you will.
It's attorney, whatever her last name is, I forgot.
No, she's attorney Jennifer. How about that?
To go back and get information or get the swabs from that area and what testing was done, and that there was testing done to identify that it was the defendant's blood that was on the outside. So I think that
okay, so they did test blood.
The claims have been made, but the evidence shows that there has been.
Oh, they for sure tested the blood. They tested the shingles.
That testimony, that testimony feels like it happened so long ago to me that I forget stuff.
No, I forgot about it too. But they straight up had transfer evidence, smear evidence, and all that kind of thing when they were discussing the fall, and I'm sure in other places as well. And you know what? She's right. As much as I want to call her Jen, she's right.
And the pill bottles, and there's been some claims made about things that were not done about those things. But again, I think there's been adequate testimony about why those things weren't flagged on that day of the incident. Police weren't aware of the fact that there was actually an ingestion of medications on that particular day. And when they did notify, or when they were aware, we had prescription bottles that were provided by Patrick Clancy, but those bottles in that drawer conveniently never got produced for testing or further analysis. So I think, again, he's free to argue it. I don't think it rises to the level of an instruction. And just kind of as a side note on a comment about involuntary instruction, I don't think there is a one. So I would ask that the court not consider that, because I don't think there is an actual instruction about it. Again, counsel's free to argue that in the form of intent, in the form of whether the Commonwealth has met its burden regarding criminal responsibility. But as far as I can find, there's no particular instruction on that. And if Your Honor were to provide an instruction, then according to the case law, if it's raised to that level, then we would have the burden of proving voluntary consumption, which would put all of that back into play that we've now disagreed.
All right.
Can you summarize what the boat lady just
I'm
said?
going to give.
Well, she was arguing a
Attorney
bunch
boat
of
lady.
things. Yeah, she was addressing stuff that I didn't get to hear Reddington argue, because he was asking. I remember he asked for like 4 different things. I don't remember everything that he asked for, but one of them was going.
This was the Bowden instruction, right?
No, this was above and beyond the Bowden instruction, because he was talking about the prescription medications and whether or not she involuntarily intoxicated or not. He made an argument about that, and I forgot what he said, and we didn't replay
Well, he
it.
said the medications, if she's taking her medications, the medication basically have adverse effects, then it's an involuntary intoxication versus taking cocaine voluntarily or something like that.
Right. And so ultimately what happened is he asked for stuff regarding that, and the judge didn't give him those things. What he did give him, and what kind of is all encompassing, is the fact that the jury can consider the prescription evidence the way it was presented. We don't need a separate instruction as to the voluntary or involuntary aspect of it all. If you think that the prescription drugs was a thing, you can consider it in terms of the verdict, and here's a middle ground option for you to choose from. That was the bottom line. But yeah, that was it. She was speaking about a lot more than the Bowden instruction.
A manslaughter instruction in line with basically what's on page 8. I am not going to give a Bowden instruction. The defendant is free to argue that any deficiencies that he feels that are in the investigation, certainly free to argue. I will not give.
When he says free to argue, does he mean during like closing or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly what it means.
Instructions in regards to the criminal responsibilities. So I'll have a better draft in the morning, but I just kind of wanted to let you know what the instructions are so that you can prepare your closing arguments.
In other words, they can argue whatever they want to argue about criminal responsibility. That's up to them for their closing arguments. He's not going to put a separate instruction into the jury instructions for them to contend with. And, the jury instructions is always like this really interesting fight that happens, because it's necessarily the last thing that you get to put in front of a jury when they're deciding about a verdict. And so these instructions are really important, but the judge is not going. He has a couple of burdens. Number one is to make them fair. Number two, to make them conform to the law. But number three, he doesn't want to confuse them either, right? Similar to like what happened in the Karen Reed trial with like the jury slip forms or whatever, where they were all over the place and the jury instructions didn't adequately answer how to fill out the forms, and it resulted in a mistrial. So he's trying to guard against those things when he's finalizing these jury instructions.
And speaking of those closings, how much time do you think you may need on that?
Give them 30 minutes each.
I think that's what he said. Yeah, that's what they got.
More of an hour.
All right,
You don't need an hour, Jen.
I was thinking of all the testimony. all
It's
the
Attorney Sprague, bitch.
exhibits. Party want an hour. You don't have to use it all. And like I said, I've seen all 3 of you tried cases, so I know you'll be making progress. So if it gets to 1 hour and 1 minute, I'm not going to push the button.
All right. I think that's enough for today.
I thought he said half an hour. I thought they agreed on half an hour. No?
No, he said an hour.
Okay. I got confused. I thought they said half hour. That's my bad.
Well, it was an hour or a half hour. I'm covering it anyway, so
Yeah, we'll be here
what
anyways.
it's going to be.
Okay.
I have a hearing in the morning, so I'm probably not going to cover it live. But if my hearing,
Oh, no, I'm not doing anything live. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's because you're lame. How about that?
Yeah. Also, I work for a living.
I know, son of a bitch, man. The career, it's such an impediment to content creation, you know?
Yeah, right?
All right. We've spent 2 hours and 13 minutes on this case, which is an hour and 13 minutes longer than I intended to go.
I thought we were for sure going for 2 hours.
Oh, well, I should just know whenever Lauren joins the stream, it's going to be a long one.
Well, it's only 2:20 a.m. here, so, it's
But that's
no
only
big
because we're having so much fun. It makes the time go by so much faster.
This is true, yeah.
And so,
Despite the
anyway,
whole
folks.
trauma aspect of the case.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to forget sometimes that
We leave room for
what this
sadness
case is about.
while we're having fun.
We cope with the sadness through our comedy,
Yep, that's true.
however we can.
All right, I gotta go to bed now.
All right, folks. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope y'all. Why is people typing Laura Owens into the chat?
I have no idea. It's a good question.
You know what? It doesn't matter. That's a tomorrow question. How about that?
All right, cool.
Love you, folks. Take care.
Yep.
Bye bye.
See you later.